Senator from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. President. To my colleague from South Carolina, Senator Graham, we'll challenge the Clemson Tigers to the NCAA skiing championship anytime. Mr. President, I rise today to speak about the bill that we're working on today, Senate Bill 1, strengthening America's security in the Middle East. I'm proud to be a sponsor of this legislation, along with Senator Rubio, Senator Risch. I commend Senator Risch for working with the majority leader, Chairman Risch, for attempting to move forward with this important legislation and effort without delay. This bill combines four non-controversial, and I think that's important to recognize here today, this bill combines four non-controversial pieces of legislation from the 115th Congress that are intended to support our strong allies, Israel and Jordan, and to impose sanctions against the gross human rights abuses of the Assad regime in Syria. We have no stronger ally in the Middle East than the State of Israel. Israel has proven itself to be a resilient beacon of democratic values despite facing existential threats daily since its founding in 1948. Our two nations have worked closely to fight terrorism, to stop the spread of radical Islamist terrorism, extremism, and to prevent nuclear and chemical weapons proliferation by rogue regimes such as Syria and Iran. The legislation before us today would simply reaffirm our strong support for Israel, including $3.3 billion per year in annual U.S. security assistance. Consistent with the 10-year U.S.-Israel Memorandum of Understanding, which was signed by, in 2016, President Obama. In the 115th Congress, 72 senators, Republicans and Democrats, co-sponsored this legislation. It passed in the Senate unanimously on August 1st of 2018. There is no reason why my colleagues across the aisle should not support this legislation today. No reason, in order to show our strong bipartisan support to our friend and ally Israel at a time of great need. This package also includes provisions supporting state governments that have taken action against the anti-Israel and anti-Semitic movement known as boycott, divestment, and sanctions, or BDS. To date, 26 states, including my home state of Colorado, have adopted laws or executive orders against BDS. This legislation before us today simply endorses those decisions and clarifies that these measures adopted or enforced by a state or local government are not preempted by any federal law if they comply with the requirements in the legislation. This anti-BDS legislation had 48 bipartisan co-sponsors in the 115th Congress. There's no reason it should not be passed with bipartisan support today. BDS is a vile movement, and should be vociferously opposed by Republicans and Democrats and everyone alike. This is why on December 20th, I led a letter with 14 of my Senate colleagues right here. I ask unanimous consent that this letter be entered into the record. 14 of my colleagues, a letter to the majority leader, to the Democratic leader, to take immediate action against BDS. In that letter, we asked for immediate bipartisan response against BDS, including moving today's legislation, that we move this bill forward. In that letter, we quote the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Schumer, when he spoke at the annual American-Israel Public Affairs Committee conference just this past March. Less than a year ago, here is what Senator Schumer told the audience at AIPAC on March 5th, 2018. We must continue to stand firm against the profoundly biased campaign to delegitimize the State of Israel through boycotts, divestment, and sanctions. While Iran publicly executes its citizens, Turkey jails its journalists, scores of Arab nations punish homosexuality with imprisonment and torture, why does BDS single Israel out alone for condemnation when there is such a double standard, when the world treats everybody one way and the Jew or the Jewish state another way? There's only one word for it: anti-Semitism. Let us call out the BDS movement for what it is. Let us delegitimize the delegitimizers by letting the world know when there is a double standard. Whether they know it or not, they are actively participating in an anti-Semitic movement. Those were the words of the Democratic minority leader in March of 2018. I completely agree with Senator Schumer. And yet today I understand that he and members of his caucus plan to vote against the motion to proceed on bipartisan legislation that would condemn BDS. It's regrettable. It's unfortunate. It's horrible. It's also part of a new and disturbing trend that we see from some of our colleagues in the Democratic caucus. Because as we noted in our letter, several members of the House of Representatives have now publicly endorsed BDS. and have not been condemned by Senator Schumer and other Democratic leaders. We saw the manifestation of this dangerous trend 2 days ago when a Democratic representative issued a statement alleging that the senators who introduced the bill before us today, myself included, forget what country they represent. This is a reprehensible charge of dual loyalty, utterly unbefitting of a sitting member of Congress. And we all need to come together to condemn such vile insinuations. I'm glad to see that respected nonpartisan organizations like the American Jewish Coalition Committee, AJC, have now issued strong statements rebuking this Democratic member of Congress. The AJC reads in part, AJC is outraged at the tweet posted by the representative that U.S. senators who had introduced Israel-related legislation forgot what country they represent. That assertion, which completely avoids legitimate debate about the content of the bill itself, insinuates that a number of respected, long-serving senators are somehow more loyal to Israel than they are to the United States. The charge evokes classical anti-Semitic tropes about dual loyalty, in this case applied to some lawmakers who are not even Jewish, that have no place in our political discourse. I ask unanimous consent that the statement from AJC be entered into the record.
Without objection.
I believe this body can do different. So I ask my colleagues to put politics aside, to vote yes on the motion to proceed to this legislation that will help enhance our national security and will take a strong action against a reprehensible and racist movement known as BDS. And I know there are some who believe that we should shut the Senate down because of the current funding situation in the federal government. But let me remind members of this chamber, in 2013, under Democrat Majority Leader Harry Reid, what was voted on during the shutdown in 2013. Here it is. A bill to authorize the Secretary of the Interior to take actions to implement the agreement between the United States of America and the United Mexican States concerning transboundary hydrocarbon reservoirs in the Gulf of Mexico. Somehow in 2013, it was okay to find time for that measure. In 2013, while complaining about finding time for other measures right now, during the shutdown in 2013, they found time to address Security Clearance Oversight and Reform Enhancement Act. They found time for the Small Airplane Revitalization Act. They found time to ensure that any new or revised requirement providing for the screening, testing, or treatment of individuals operating commercial motor vehicles for sleep disorders is adopted pursuant to a rulemaking proceeding and for other purposes. But now they don't want to bring up anti-BDS legislation because we shouldn't be talking about anything else. But in 2013, they had time to vote on things like, and to consider things like, to extend the period during which Iraqis who were employed by the United States government in Iraq may be granted special immigrant status and to temporarily increase the fee or surcharge for processing machine-readable non-immigrant issues. Now, I'm not downplaying the importance of these bills. I'm saying there seems to be a significant double standard and a significant partisan double standard because what is being complained about today is the same thing that was fine in 2013. Had time to vote on a couple district judges as well. But now, there's no time for that. People are saying that we shouldn't vote on this legislation until the government is funded. I've said it very clearly, we need to fund the government. But what also needs to be very clear is how people will vote on this legislation. To not hide behind the shutdown on how they would vote on anti-BDS legislation. We've heard the rhetoric. We've heard the very real comments from not fictitious members of Congress, but from actual members of Congress who support an anti-Semitic movement. We can condemn it today with a simple vote to proceed. And if people don't want to take too much time to debate on it, I think everybody knows that it's right to support an anti-BDS position. They know it's right to oppose Assad and his chemical attacks and the other torturous actions he's taken against his own people. It's a pretty simple vote on this. Motion to proceed, vote yes, support the underlying legislation. Bipartisan members, Republicans and Democrats, just last year supported this legislation, voted for this legislation. And I hope they won't let partisan politics get in the way of doing what is right. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Hi everyone, my name's Mike. I'm the creator of Mox News. And for the last 15 years, I have been telling you that as long as I have the support of the community that I serve, Mox News will post videos forever. And that's the truth. As long as I have your support, no one could ever make me stop. Unfortunately, currently, less than 1/10 of 1% of Mox News viewers ever donate, tip, or contribute anything back. Again, let me make that really clear. Much less than 1/10 of 1% ever give anything back. And to those of you who have donated to Mox News, I want to thank you so much, because it's because of your generosity that we have been able to bring attention to important videos that millions and millions of eyes would have never seen. And I think that that's an amazing thing that we've been able to make happen together. And I can't thank you enough for helping me make that happen. So it's not too late. If you'd like to see Mox News covering the 2020 presidential election, if you can't imagine the 2020 presidential election without Mox News, please, there's still time. You can make a difference. It's easy to make a contribution, donation, or tip. You can go to moxnews.com, or in the text body of this video, there are clickable links to the Patreon page or to the PayPal page. And again, it should take less than 2 minutes to make a donation, and your donation can make a big difference. So I thank you all. Stay cool. One of these days this war is going to end, and it would be awesome if Mox News could be there to celebrate that day with you.